Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we've got the 3v3 championships. This is the Bandai Card Fest second anniversary in Japan. This is going to be the 8.5 meta, so OP08 with the starter decks that are going on. So buckle up. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be the last tournament, I believe, before Law is banned in Japan. It gets the ban that and the NS Lobby stage on September 1st. So if you're not 100% sure how a 3v3 works in the One Piece trading card game, these tournaments, so you get in teams of 3, right? And in these teams of 3, you each distinguish yourself with a leader. Now, not only does the leader have to be unique in itself, right? You can't have 2 of these OP01 Zoros on your team. They also cannot have the same color combination. So you see in this graphic here, even though that there is a Zoro and an Ace, right? 2 unique leaders, they consist of being mono yellow or mono red. They consist of both being mono red, so that is not allowed. And the same goes with dual type colors as well. Now, you could have Zoro and Trafalgar Law on the same team, right? Because red, mono red, is not the same as red purple. So that's why in this graphic they have red purple Law and Luffy being In this as well, your team has to win 2 of the 3 matches to advance into the next round. And so the first 2 teams, this first round we're going to have in here, it's really interesting to see the different teams in this tournament, and it looks to be a good little mix-up in here. The red team has a Doflamingo and a Nell and a red purple Law, while the blue team has Law, Lucci, and black yellow Luffy. Now, Law we can expect, because it's not banned yet, to be on most all teams, I would think. I think the Enel is also a good call, because I think Enel has probably a decent matchup into Law for a lot of reasons. And Doflamingo, we've seen Doflamingo have a surge since the new starter decks released 15 through 20 in this OP08.5 meta. So it's going to be exciting to see this matchup that you already know what it is. It is Doflamingo and black yellow Luffy. We're going to see that in action as I fast forward. And if you're wondering how I'm doing this fast forward, reminder, just as always in these Japan tournament videos, that I am watching the official broadcast. This is not my production. I'm just providing unique commentary for my own practice. And subscribe for more, and also check the link in the channel in the description below if you want to see this actual tournament for yourself. You don't want to hear me yap. But for those of you that want to stay, maybe subscribe for more. We'll go over this whole tournament here as we get into this. I appreciate you all sticking around. So it looks like that the Doflamingo is going first in this game. I think the black yellow Luffy mulligan, so their mulligan hand looking like a yellow Sabo baby, yellow Luffy, the big one that powers up to 8,000 on the boost. Makino, Garp, and Emporio Ivankov blocker. The Doflamingo having 2 Weevils in hand, and with a Jinbei as well. The Jinbei Weevil combo is going to be huge in this matchup, providing a ton of pressure right away. Having a pudding as well. Pudding is nice if you try to starve. The black yellow Luffy's got a really big hand, and you use that pudding to put them back down to 5, and then the perfume femur is going to be really good to make one of your characters or leader unblockable to be able to finish out a game, especially because black yellow Luffy has a ton of Sabo blockers that they like to use, and especially with this list, now that we see Ivankov as well in this black yellow Luffy deck, perfume femur could be even better. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, how many Jinbei Weevil combos they can get. And especially if you are able to draw enough cards and find a second Jinbei to combo with that second Weevil in your hand, you're going to have probably a really good time in this. Could be swayed a lot in your favor in this matchup, but we'll just have to see exactly what happens. The Rocket Luffy, the Egghead OP07 Luffy SR, is probably going to be important in this matchup because Doflamingo running mainly 4 cost and less characters, that Egghead Luffy is going to be able to pop once you get to 2 life or less, going to be able to KO those. So rocking the Shanks Dawn sleeves right there, those old school sleeves. We've got these 2 players here. The Doflamingo player, not the usual Doflamingo player that we see in a lot of the tournaments that we go over. So it'll be curious to see, rocking the nice Doflamingo PB01 Dawn as well. But just a pass right there. No Peronas or anything like that to do some restacking. And the Black Yellow Luffy is going to start with the Garp. Going to try to set up his hand a little bit. Going to try to find a Ace, Sabo, or Luffy, and he's going to find a Sabo right here. So going to be grabbing that Sabo. Sabo, although a good card, you got to be careful with blue because blue runs Gravity Blade. Gravity Blade, a great card in blue decks to get rid of 6 costs or less like Sabo. So gonna start off while doing a blind flip. So 7,000 power swing. Gonna rest one more. Look at the top of their deck. It's gonna be a Jinbei top deck. The Jinbei top deck, even resting that Jinbei, is going to be able to play a Weevil as active and draw on card. And he's gonna guarantee on his second turn that he's gonna have 4 5,000 power or more bodies on the field, basically, as long as one of them doesn't go away in this next turn. So Rocket Luffy on that trigger is going to take out a Weevil, but you still get your Jinbei, so all is not entirely lost, right? That Luffy having that KO of 4 cost or less character trigger was really good at that point. You might want to keep it in hand usually, but I think especially against this Doflamingo deck and that combo, it's a good way to be able to try to control the board, right? Try to get the Doflamingo to run out of steam. So this 6K swing, I don't know if it's going at leader or the Jinbei right now, but either way, it's going to be a 2K Croc that is put away, and another Garp is going to come in, maybe thinking about playing a specific card with that 2 Dawn. Gonna find 2 different aces, so gonna have to grab one of them, the only option that you can grab in that stack, and that ace is going to come into the hand. It looks like the 2 Dawn is going to be used. I'm gonna preemptively play this baby Sabo right here. Maybe try to utilize this Makino next turn to reorder your life, or maybe play the Ivankov to be able to get that baby to evolve into a 5-drop Sabo. So 5 Dawn turn now for this Doflamingo. I would expect to see maybe a 6K swing from either the leader or Jinbei, and then play into another Jinbei Weevil combo. Could be really good, I think, in a lot of situations. You get to draw another card as well. Gonna start off with a 5K swing from the Jinbei. I think definitely, especially since we saw the Egghead Luffy, you're going to want to be able to swing the characters first to get the most amount of value from your board. So I'm going to be looking around. We could see a 5K swing from the Doflamingo leader, not attaching any Dawn, because we see that 1 cost Perona in hand. That 1 cost Perona could be good with reordering the deck in future turns to be able to use that leader effect, but I don't think they really want to with that Boa Hancock in hand. That Boa Hancock is going to be nice, going to get them to reorder in the next turn anyways, so might as well leave that Perona in hand as counter, because the starter deck Boa in hand right there, that ST13 Boa, doesn't have counter on it, so you value that a little bit more because you know that Sabo can evolve into probably something in the next turn because you can't get rid of it right now. So this 6K swing going to be countering out with the Makino, probably going with that Ivankov play that I mentioned earlier, but we're gonna see the 4 for another alternate art Jinbei and the Weavile come in, or Weavile, that's a Pokemon. Been playing a little bit of Pokemon lately, but that Weevil come in. The Weevil is going to get another pudding, which isn't your most desirable card, I would say, but because you have a little bit of restacking with that Boa Hancock next turn, the pudding's not like that bad, right? It does have counter on it. It's not a non-counter card. You do run a couple non-counter cards in this list with the Boa Hancock, the Perfume Femur, and then also stuff like Edward Weevil, right? So it could have been worse. And so looking at the rest of this right here, you could see a swing with Garp potentially. Use 3 Dawn to rest the Ivankov, right? Then the Ivankov sets up that Sabo evolution right there to be able to play. So they're going to do that exact thing. Go down to 1 life in this play. Going to delete 1 of their life. It's a 2K, which really stinks at times, but going to be able to put a 5-cost character from their hand face down at the top of their life. More than likely going to be this Sabo right here. Thinking about maybe putting the Ace in. You don't have any Ace to evolve, right? Or maybe you do have a baby Ace right there. I do see another 2-cost baby. It is that Ace. Going to put that there so then they can get a 7K swing on this evolution. Going to evolve from that baby Ace into the big one. Going to boost up their leader 2,000 power. And so with 1 Dawn left, what can they do? They can't evolve the Sabo baby, I don't think. No way to put that big Sabo in hand in life. Lots of geckos going on in that hand, and they're going to start off with that 7K swing right here. Maybe think about swinging 8 with their leader here. And so going with this 7K swing, you still have 5 life left. Maybe think about taking one of these swings. You definitely want to take maybe one of the 2 swings, and so looking like a potential trigger right here, but opting not to use it. And it looks like it's a Trafalgar Law, so maybe not necessarily thinking of the trigger, but thinking, oh, this might actually be a good card in my hand. So we'll take both of these life right here, this 7 and this 8,000 power swing. It's a Marshall D. Teach. Marshall D. Teach, one of the best cards introduced in this deck. One of the reasons that the Doflamingo deck has gotten so good since the starter deck's release. Now ton of cards in hand right now, and so going to pass it off to the Doflamingo right there. Nothing else to do. You do have a blocker on field, which is kind of nice, because here on 7 Dawn, if they play a Gravity Blade, they can't play anything else down. So I think you kind of take that if they bottom deck those 2 cards, kind of save that Sabo for later. And so going to be drawing, what did they draw? A Sengoku Searcher. So the Sengoku Searcher synergizing well with this deck, finding 7 Warlords of the Sea cards. That's primarily most of your deck, so does have a lot of benefits being run in this deck. Might be trying to find it to get another Jinbei or something, maybe a Jinbei or a Weevil. Maybe not thinking of playing that Boa Hancock to be able to reorder and use leader effects. So could start off with the Jinbei. Would have 6 Dawn left if they decided to do that right there. And so going to attach 1, swing 7,000 power at the Ace. Going for the Ace, this is a strategy we see a lot of times with people who play against Black Yellow Luffy. Say, you know what, maybe for this last life, I'm going to force you to take this last life yourself. I'm not going to be the one to take it. I'm going to instead draw your board. Whether you do that with evolutions, right? I'm going to spend my time swinging at your characters, your sideways characters, and then with the rest of my Dawn, maybe play down characters. So after taking that character, not using any counter right there, only having 4 cards in hand, 2K worth of counter, splitting the Dawn up 4 and 2, could play this Boa Hancock, but wouldn't be able to use anything like a leader effect, especially with 2 Dawn left. So maybe think about restanding their top deck. We could see this Doflamingo player just put on a little bit of pressure right here. They could maybe go for lethal at this point, right? You have to hit twice. There's 1 life left and 1 blocker on field. Might have a situation where this game could end relatively quickly at this point because of only 2K of counter in hand. So maybe thinking about attaching 2 to a Jinbei, swinging 7. If you attach 2 and 2, you would only be able to swing 6 with a leader. So we'll see exactly where they want to go with this. I don't mind the Boa play. I don't mind trying to build up your board just a little bit more, but I think they're going to be the aggressor on this. Maybe swinging this 7 at lead, try to see what they do off of this. This 7 swing, if they end up taking the life, could tell a lot of stories for this Black Yellow Luffy player. One, they don't have a way to take life in hand, which would mean that they don't have like any 2Ks in hand, right? Or 2Ks that they want to give up in there. So could be a little tricky right here. You do have to swing 7 in general because you are a 7,000 power leader, so would be really tough to go for game, but I think maybe saving the rest of this Dawn just to be able to play the Boa potentially, or maybe another character like that Trafalgar Law, but going to be pitching that one Sabo, could come back, and it looks like just going to be swinging a couple 7s right here, so putting the pressure on right now on this player and going to take that last life, gonna swing 7. This could tell a little bit if they decide to use the blocker or not. I would think that this Black Yellow Luffy player probably counters with that Luffy. You probably and here's the thing that's tricky right now, because you're gonna only be at 8 Dawn. You can't necessarily use Gecko in this turn. So with only 1 baby, you're going to have to hope to draw another baby off of this top deck, which he does, but it's a Sabo baby. You only have 1 Sabo right now in the trash. And so with your leader effect, you're going to have to commit to in putting them in life. So I think what you have to do, use 2 for the leader effect, put a Sabo blocker and also a Luffy, right? Put a Luffy in there. You've got a couple big Luffys that you can put in your life. And then after you use the Sabo effect, try to draw into one of those Luffy babies. It's the only baby you haven't seen yet, so it's the most likely card that you'll be able to draw off of it. And so we'll see exactly what he decides to go with. Going to be using that leader effect, pitching a Gecko non-counter card in this hand. You like to see that if you are the Doflamingo player. And it's going to grab that 5-cost Sabo like I mentioned. I think probably, I don't know exactly what I would grab off here. I think both the Luffy and both the Egghead Luffy and the Power-Up Luffy both have value, but I think maybe the Egghead Luffy is probably a little bit more valuable because you are going to want to try to control board as much as possible. So putting that Sabo in the top and then using that Sabo effect maybe right here, like I mentioned, going to have a bit of Dawn to work with. So going to use that Sabo effect, become a 7K leader once again, draw 2 cards. We'll see what these 2 cards are and see if he can go to 9. It looks like a Rocket Luffy and something else. It looks like a Hiyori 2K. So there's good news in this, I believe, because you can play that Rocket Luffy, right? You can play that Rocket Luffy and do a little bit of board control and be able to draw a card off of that. You would have 1 Dawn left that's kind of just awkwardly there. Maybe want to attach it to leader and blast one of these Doflamingo characters on field. But you still have to pitch 2 cards. So what 2 cards do you exactly pitch? Thinking of the Sabo babies, got 2 Sabo babies in hand. You can just get them off of the Gecko, bring them back. And so maybe hard playing this Luffy right here to try to draw a card. Gonna first be swinging 9 though, and swinging 9 at life? I think he's swinging 9 at life and is going to be hitting a Buggy. The Buggy is nice, a 2K counter in this game, and then going to use that Luffy effect to draw 1 card and pop that Weevil because you are at 2 life or less, and another Gecko. My goodness, the 9 counter in the hand could be trouble in this turn. I don't think this Doflamingo though is playing Gravity Blade, so I think that the Black Yellow Luffy player is safe from a double Gravity Blade coming up, and so it'll be interesting to see how they decide to continue going through this game. Now at 9 Dawn and has the potential to claim a win. It would be a little tricky though as a 7K leader because one, you want to build your board, but also because now they have 2 blockers. You weren't able to pop that Ivankov in the last turn right there, but the Perfume Femur could spell trouble. The Perfume Femur, remember, does give you unblockables, so if you're able to get them to take a life, right, take this Luffy life, you can stack the rest of the Dawn on this Doflamingo leader or one of these Jinbei, and then you'll be able to take that win potentially. It'll be curious to see what exactly he does right here, but we'll see where he decides to go right now. I'm super curious at this point, because you're at like an interesting spot, because like you're susceptible to getting your Jinbeis kind of blown up by different characters in the next turn, right? Because Gecko, you could potentially see an ace, right? We already saw an ace combo once. We could see another one. Or maybe with that Luffy right there, could play that Luffy, right? A baby Luffy, and pop another character on field. So do you want to swing with your characters, get the value going right now, or do you want to just try to go for game at this point? So going to be attaching 3, looks like, and going the aggressive route, going to be swinging 8 at a 7,000 Luffy. And so needing 2k counter right now to get out of this for only 1 card. We'll see if they decide to take this life or not. I think obviously we know that the Perfume Femur is in hand, but it's a little tricky. Do you expect to see Perfume Femur? If they do play Perfume Femur, what exactly can they get up to? Remember that Perfume Femur does give a character or leader 2,000 in power. So for the 2 Dawn that's rested, that's basically attaching the Dawn. And so gonna get rid of the Hiyori. I like this. You kind of delay the taking the life as much as possible right here. So swing another 8,000 power at lead, and so probably going to prompt an Ivankov block, I would think, right here. You don't have enough counter to be able to do it. The Sabo block, I do respect the Sabo block in a sense, because the Sabo block will say that you can bring it right back, right? You're going to be at 10 Dawn and you're going to have a Gecko, so I don't hate choosing that instead over the Ivankov, because you can't loop the Ivankov. You can loop the Sabos at this point. So we'll see with the rest of this Dawn. It looks like they're going to be playing a Marshall D Teach. That Teach is going to be nice, putting a card at the top of the deck and attaching 2 rested Dawn to lead. Going to be using that leader effect for a 7k swing and playing that Boa Hancock. That Boa Hancock there, a 4/6 blocker. So could be nice for any potential rush candidates coming in for this Luffy. And going to be restacking another Boa. It looks like a buggy and a looks like a trophy card, like a treasure card, putting it at the bottom of the deck. Not something we usually see with Doflamingo. And then with that Boa Hancock, going to be attaching another Dawn. So is this an 8,000 power swing or a 7,000 power swing? I actually don't know. If somebody in the comments could let me know if that's a 7 or an 8, I think it would be an 8,000 power swing. Because remember, that Boa Hancock, after being played, is going to, and once you do the reorder, does bring up a rested Dawn to a character or leader. So opting for the Doflamingo, then that finishes the Doflamingo's when attacking action, right? And since he got an attached Dawn, I believe that means he's an 8,000 power swing instead of 7. So if that is the case, I don't know that for exact, but if that is, really, really strong combo to really utilize the Dawn, swing 8,000 power, but also playing down a 6,000 power character on top of that, really just showcasing the flexibility of this deck and its hefty amount of swings that we see in this game. And so Black Eel Luffy now at 10 Dawn right here. You definitely want to evolve twice, right? Because you want to evolve twice and get 9,000 power, but you're going to have no life, no cards in hand, a bunch of swings to be able to, or going to have to deal with, and you're going to only guarantee 1 blocker on the field because you only have 1 blocker Sabo in the trash. So it's going to be curious to see what this Black Eel Luffy does. It doesn't look good in my opinion. Could be curious. You could try to go for game, but with so many cards in hand, right? Even if you don't know any of the cards in hand, we have the luxury of knowing, but even if you don't know, that 8 cards right there is so much potential counter that we see right there. And especially with no blockers on the field and 3 life, you're going to have to do some swinging with potentially the Garps or the Ivankov. So that's a lot of Dawn that you're going to have to put aside for that exact thing. So maybe thinking about evolving with the Ace and the Sabo babies right there. That's going to give you a rush to maybe take out one of these characters, but also give you a blocker, right? Maybe try to draw into a little bit of counter. You would be at 9, so it would be a little difficult with Perfume Femur, but Perfume Femur and the rest of the Dawn is going to be a 15k unblockable swing, so it's kind of spelling doom at this point if you go down to 0 life. So thinking about those two babies right there, putting them in, gonna have to get rid of one of the Garps, and I do agree with the Garp. It's definitely one of the characters that you get rid of, and we'll see exactly with Leader Effect what he decides to put in and actually evolve. There is a chance that he only goes up to 7 and leaves 1 life, right? Does the Sabo baby first and then leaves the Ace maybe in life, or potentially puts up a Luffy in the life instead of the Ace and maybe try to use the Ace in a later turn. So going to be putting the Ace in Sabo. Looks like he's probably going to be evolving both of them right there. It's going to be that Ace that gets the evolution. 7,000 power leader and a 7,000 power body with rush hits the field. Going to go ahead and swing. So this swing, it's curious, do you go for characters or life? And it looks like he's going for life right now. Just going to be a 2k 1k combo, this Croc and Pudding to get out of, and it looks like, especially if they evolve, that this Doflamingo is going to win this contest. And even, I even said that it was potentially 15 right with leader, but with a 6,000 power boa, you could actually swing 16,000 power unblockable at the end of the game here. So going to get rid of Luffy and the Gecko, only having a baby in hand, only 1,000 counter as a 9k leader. Could swing 11 somewhere. Where do you exactly swing it though is the question. I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things. I think this Doflamingo has it locked up for his team, but there is going to be at least a swing in here. No conceding in these championships, and so thinking about what potentially is the best option, making sure they have all of their options laid out for them. Is there a chance? And just going to swing 11 at the boa. And so with the boa on the 11k swing, maybe thinking about countering out of this. Don't have enough counter in hand, but is going to put it in the bin and have plenty of power to work with to close this one out. Going to draw a card. Perfume Femur is going to come down, and there we go. There's the essential concession, right? No swing needed for that. As soon as they showcase the Perfume Femur, you know the game is over, and Doflamingo is going to be our winner in this video. We'll see. I think the series just ended in general, so it looks like the Doflamingo's team ended up winning that round in the advantage, and maybe will be advancing into the next round of this tournament. And it looks like they did end up getting that one. Could potentially see the Doflamingo or a Nell later in the rounds. So it looks like in these matchups too, it looks like the Doflamingo and the Law ended up winning their matches. The Law beating Lucci, not something that we see a ton of on this channel. Usually Lucci comes out on top on Law, and then the Law beating out a Nell. So interesting, curious to see those different results in there. Usually if the stream match is the one that ends first, they usually showcase some of these other games. So curious too, because that game was not slow by any means. I mean, we had just gotten to the 10 on turn when the game ended. So really curious in there, but let's look at some deck lists. So we don't have the exact Black Yellow Luffy deck list that was utilized in this match, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what that deck looked like based on this tournament. So this tournament, this is another deck from the tournament that we may talk about in the future in here. This is probably what I would say a relatively standard list, right? There's a lot of people that are gravitating towards this Ivankov right here. This Ivankov is really nice to help be able to set up your life and help continue to take life if your opponent is just letting you or is not swinging at you at all. And there's other opportunities in here, right? This Sabo really good for the red purple law matchup, which is very nice, which a lot of people just tech for. This Kuzan right here also really good for a lot of different matchups, whether that is your matchups like Lucci, right, where they have those big bodies. You can put them all down at least a bit to then be able to be popped the next turn by this Luffy, or whenever you slap one down, you have a 10,000 power character that Law is probably not going to get rid of, and you get to pop something like the Eustace Captain Kid blocker or a Queen, which is really, really helpful in this deck because you don't play any more cost minusing effects in here. Opting for the playset of the Three Brothers Bond, that event card is nice right there. I do enjoy this list. I do like the idea of a lot of these cards. I do like 10 cost Kuzan. I don't know if I would personally play it in Black Yellow Luffy, but maybe for the OP08.5. Well, I don't know if I would play it after Law gets banned in the West. I don't know. That's really curious. I'd love to know your opinion on that there. We don't have the exact Doflamingo deck list either at the time of this recording. I'm doing this video shortly after the 3v3 championships ended, so it might just not be online yet, but I've modified this a little bit on your screen to be able to show you probably what it is, right? Especially since they played the Marshall D. Teach. Not a ton of lists that I've been seeing lately on One Piece top decks are playing this card, but it has such a great effect here in the One Piece trading card game that honestly, I mean, I think you should play it. As you saw in that game, it can provide a lot of great combos, even though Black and Law get rid of it so easily, right? Being a 2-cost character that does not have a ton of power, but the turn that you do get to play it provides so many different benefits, especially if you have a really awkward or weird hand. This version of the deck primarily focusing on just getting bodies on the field, right? You don't see a lot of top end like the 6-cost Boa Hancock, the 10-cost Kaido, at least in this list. Sometimes just going wider and having much more swings provides a lot of dividends, right? We see that sometimes in like Nami matchups, right? In Nami, sometimes it's better to just swing a ton of 5s right away, dwindle me down to a hand, and then play a big character with the rest of your Dawn. So then the next turn, you have a bunch of 5s to dwindle my hand down a ton more, and then a bigger swing to be able to guarantee take life at times. It's curious how some of these matchups and some of these decks kind of rely on the same idea in situations like that. We saw the Perfume Femur played in this, a one of in this specific list. I don't know if the actual player had a one of or more, but what we do know at least is that it was the winning opportunity in the game. Just a strong matchup against things like Black Hill Luffy and also Law, right? Being able to negate the blockers entirely without actually having to get rid of them for when their opponent's hand size is real small, and be able to maximize not having enough counter to be able to close out games. But that's going to be all in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and again, check the link in the description for the official stream if you want to watch that. But I appreciate everybody that's subscribed and checked out the channel and watched more because, you know, you like my commentary. Apologies that there's not really been a video in the last like almost 2 weeks now, I think, by the time this video releases. For anyone who doesn't know, I work in athletics, and so school's starting, and that means sports are starting, so it's a really hectic time for me right now with work. And then I also just moved my partner in, and so it's kind of nice being able to see them like every day now. So just spending a lot of quality time while also going to like more locals and stuff, and trying to stay present at my One Piece locals and stuff like that at that level. So appreciate it. Videos should be on stream a little bit more now as my schedule gets adjusted again and back in rhythm. So appreciate it. Let's try to hit 10K by the end of the year. Maybe still possible. I think it's definitely still possible.